You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game.
Right. That's the wrong transition. There we go. That's the right transition. Hello, everybody. How are you all doing tonight? Welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider. Pause with me quickly as I get our social media prepared and sent out. Ashley is going to be joining us a little bit later, and so she's not gone. She's just joining us a little bit later, getting some things done. So we are going to just keep on moving on because we got a fantastic guest tonight. So happy to do that. Okay, so we've got the social media out on Twitter X. We've got Blue Sky out there. Going over to Discord real quick to ping the people with all of the notifications. Announcement.
Gotta let them know.
That's right. We're here. We're live. Publish that announcement. And then, let's see here. To be fair, I've tried to reduce it some, and I usually just ping just the @ here instead of the everyone when I'm doing this thing. Make it a little bit more considerate for the people. But if you are a follower on YouTube, then welcome. You have probably liked and subscribed our content here. If this is your first time joining us live on YouTube, then please do consider liking and subscribing and hit that bell notification so you can know when we go live. Pretty much every Monday we go live with information about the official MLS fantasy game. I say pretty much because, things happen every now and then in our schedule. Some crazy things happen with MLS, but very rarely have we not gone live on a Monday to get the preview ready for you guys there. So yes, welcome for that. Like and subscribe. The social media is out, so we will go ahead. Actually, I didn't check. I don't see Gene. Gene's not there. Almost missed it, but don't worry.
Recording in progress.
Here we go. Got the recording. That's why it's in big bold at the top
big
of the
red letters.
That's right. In the big top, hit the record button. It's the final fail-safe in case like Ashley and Gene aren't here. So had to lean into that tonight. So all good. All right, here we go.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 12 of the MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by Goals Without Shots, the most because MLS record there ever could be. No. Actually, brought to you by the amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Find out more about our Patreon over at patreon.com/MLSFI. I'm your host, Reed Connolly from MLS Fantasy Boss, and I am joined just in the nick of time by our co-host, Ashley Savage. We'd also like to welcome our very special guest, the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord moderator and current number 3 overall ranked fantasy MLS player, Cameron Trosinski. How are you all doing tonight?
Doing well. How are you?
Yeah.
Doing good. Ashley,
doing okay.
Just glad to have you.
Sliding in at the nick of time, my guys.
You said during recast.
Welcome.
That's right. Not the recast, but the welcome. So you made it. Got the stream fixed up. So it's all looking good. Happy to have you all here. Especially super happy to have Cam here. Cam is a longtime member of our fantasy community. And he's killing it this year. Number 3 overall in the league. Previous winner of some of our MLS Fantasy Boss Pro Rel Champions Leagues. I think you've got a gold star for the Host Invitational too. Is that right?
Something like that.
I got that list somewhere. I get a plaque or something. I got to get to put everybody's name down. That's what we need to do. But yeah,
put it on everybody's walls.
Exactly. We'll just sit it all out there. And also an avid homebrew draft player as well. So super excited to have him here. Happy to share his thoughts. But Cam, just as we've done with everyone this year, kicking things off, just a little bit of a Q&A for people who may not be as familiar with you. And we're going to start out with just How does it feel to be number 3 overall ranked right now?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me. I want to put a note in here that I really do love the interview that you've been doing with everybody. I think
Well,
it's a
thank you.
nice touch. As for how it feels to be number 3, fine. It feels like there's a lot of game left to play.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I've been up here before and I've slid back down, so it's more about maintaining than where I'm at right now. So we'll see if I can keep it up.
Yeah, it's funny how different the game becomes depending on the level that you're at, of what you focus on, what the pressure is, and all of that. It just hits differently at different points. So
it's true.
Yeah, and I mean you're not number 1, so it can always be higher. That's the takeaway from
I was last week.
Hey.
I already slid down a little bit.
And we were talking before the show started how it was like just 7 points and I'm going to get up there again. So it's a game of inches.
That's tight. I remember Wojo snuck up on Priest last year. The gap was 50 something, wasn't it, or something? And Wojo came down to 1 point of Priest towards the end. It was crazy. So 7, Cam, you got this.
There's lots of big swings left.
Yeah, we got the big double game weeks coming up. We'll get to that later. But first, how did you get into MLS Fantasy, and what's your experience with the fantasy game?
So I was trying to look this up a little bit earlier today so I could really nail down the timeline. I believe I got into it. It was the last season where the fantasy game was split into multiple seasons, and they still had supporters leagues and prizes for winning, your Sporting Kansas City League or whatever.
Yeah.
I started off on the Reddit page, and I distinctly remember arguing with, I think it was probably Skylar, that there was a much better captain choice to captain this defender on Montreal. It might have been Rudy Camacho instead of some new guy on the expansion team. It was early in the season. We were only like week 2 or 3, so he hasn't done much. He's not going to do much this week, and so of course my argument was that you should cap Rudy Camacho instead of Carlos Vela, who scored a hat trick that week.
Yeah,
and so once that happened, I was like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me find all the people that are really good at this and learn from them. And so joined the Fantasy Boss community, hopped onto the Discord. I think first week it was created, just after whatever web chat was before it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And since then, I've significantly improved from captaining defenders instead of Carlos Vela. I was just kind of looking through previous finishes. I ended up 19th last year. I had a pretty tough 23, ending up in 130. But 22, I was top 30. And then 21, I finished at 3rd overall. Snuck up to 2 for a few weeks there before the end of the season, but came down to a couple of bad picks at the end there. So I finished number 3. And that's my best finish by far. But usually you can find me somewhere in the top 50, sporting a Kansas City flair there and a terrible pun-filled name.
Well, and I must say, if it's a terrible pun-filled name, you are not supporting a terrible mustache tonight. So if anybody is listening to the podcast right now, come back to YouTube real quick and just check out what Cam's rocking right here. So fantastic there.
It's a new project.
Hey, it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
That's been a long time, the transition. I remember we did that a couple of seasons where we had sort of like the I forget what the Spanish words are for the 2 halves of the season, but they had like that first chunk where there was a winner, and then you kind of reset and had a second. I don't think our points reset, but they had sort of like I didn't care for that. We did that once or twice. I think that was right before we did the Fantasy Champions League. That might have been. I think that was right before the Fantasy Champions League system.
I think that's right.
Got implemented, but they were kind of testing out some new stuff. I like how they that was the evolution of the idea was let's kind of chunk it out so it's easier for people to join in at a different point of the season, and so it's a bit of fun evolution there. So you've evolved your strategies and your thinking over time. What is your general approach to building a fantasy lineup each week?
So unfortunately, as the game has evolved, so is my approach.
Fair.
I think we all are very familiar with the updates to the stat providers last year that kind of simplified the game a little bit. And so I used to be, the guy that would dig into all the stats, and I'd know every team's expected goals and which players are, the most central ones, and putting up this kind of clearance stats and block shots and all of the fun stuff. But since the game is simplified, my approach is a little bit easier nowadays anyways. It's we'll get into it a little bit later, but I always follow the fantasy maximum, stack as many home players as possible. And so I will just go in and position by position, start at forward, sort by price, pick a few guys that have home teams in favorable matchups, move on to my midfielders, and then see if I want any of the premium out of position defenders, like, or just significant offensive contributors like Kai Wagner or Luca Oriano or one of those guys, and then fill in the rest with a couple of clean sheet shots. I almost always cheap out on goalkeeper until we get to the point where budget doesn't matter at all, just because the point ceiling isn't really there for them unless you're lucky and they get a penalty save while keeping a clean sheet. And so generally I'm setting up in a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, just depending on what position I want to bench. I've always got 2 defenders on the bench. Well, almost always. We'll talk about that in my defender picks this week. But I'm usually trying to hunt for as many clean sheet shots as possible without risking starting those defenders, because all of the points where they used to accumulate them and have safe floors are kind of gone unless they're passers.
Yep, that's so true. And Ash and I get the advantage of being in some of our group chats, and each week we see Cam coming in with like first draft, best draft. It's just sort of posted and goes from there. So those are always funny, seeing the evolution of people. Last question that we have before we get into our recaps here is, we have new people who are still playing the game, who are joining every year. So what advice would you give to any of the new players who are starting in 2025?
Yeah, I think as you quoted me, I often say first draft, best draft, and that is, it's not just for kicks, although it is a little bit for kicks. I think that we, as a community, we love to talk about the fantasy game, and we love to talk about players, and we love to find edges and matchups that we like. But usually, your first broad strokes instincts, they're usually not going to do you too much damage unless something significant changes. If we hear about major absences from a team or something, then my mind might change. But typically, I'm only filling in a couple of edge players by the time lineups are rolling out. We can get lost in the weeds on a lot of things, but really, if it's a good team going against a bad team, usually those players that you pick are going to be right at the beginning of the week, just like they are in the middle, and just like they are when lineups are going to drop. So don't tinker.
That's what I was going to say. Do you find yourself ever falling victim to like a lineup rotation, or a wing back playing further up and out of position randomly one game? Do you hold steady to that first draft, best draft in those situations, or do you consider those types of day of changes in your lineups?
Yeah, there's absolutely room for day of changes, especially like you said, if it's a defender that's kind of jumping into a weird spot. I think we saw Dante Seeley start doing that a few weeks ago, and so I popped on that once or twice. But usually it's in the margins, and so those are players that if the lineups are early and I like the matchup anyways, I'll throw that player onto my bench. So it's kind of a low risk play rather than swapping my captain because the starting left back for the other team is out, and my players, and we want to target that with the right wing of guy that I wasn't considering captaining earlier.
Yep.
Well, I am so happy to have you on the show today. Thank you for sharing all of those insight with us. I think that's really what's gotten me, is I'm just like too in my head. Like I've had a slower start. I'm overthinking everything, and I should embrace that first draft, best draft mentality to try to just reboot, to get out of this LA Galaxy of a season that I'm having.
I know.
So far, so it needs to happen. But speaking of things that happened, there were some real interesting things that happened this past round. So I am very much looking forward to you all giving your feedback. And let's just jump into the round 11 takeaways, the fantasy focused takeaways that you all have. Ashley, go ahead and kick us off. Let us know how you did and what sort of information you want to share.
Yeah, I had a terrible round again, but I beat Reed.
Oh,
in a head-to-heads. So my takeaway was, you know what? What are you gonna do? I lost the rest of my head-to-heads, but I think this was our first Derby, MLS Fantasy Insider Derby of the season. Yeah. So it just gave me something to hold on to. So that was nice. Thank you, Reed. Some surprises for me. Rusnak, and I'm gonna double down on this, even though the points betray me. I stand by my original take going into Rusnak this week, which was no Jesus Ferreira, no Jordan Morris, no minutes played since his injury, out several rounds. I didn't like Rusnak this week, and he was fantastic. He got a 13. He was his typical snacks. He did score a penalty, which still counts. I'm not going to take that away from him, but there weren't a lot of good looks from him in actual run of play. He did go basically the full game, so that's something to look forward to from a fantasy perspective for sure. We also talked last week. This is a week of me. If you guys ever watch Colin Cowherd, he does this segment called "Where Colin Was Right, Where Colin Was Wrong," and I feel that's bleeding into my fantasy takeaways every single week. But it's just where Ashley was wrong. There's no where Ashley was right. We talked last week about is the health of Chucky Lozano kind of nerfing points from Dryer. And there was a general consensus among Reed and myself and John that, yeah, he kind of was. And then, boom, this weekend hits, and they're both hitting big time goals and assist contributions, double digit points. I think it was like 18 and 16, I think. And I mean, that's not one I'll stand by, because clearly they proved us wrong. It was definitely a game that I wanted to target, and I just couldn't decide between the two of them. So it was nice to see them both hitting, and at home against some of these Western Conference teams. I think that the two of them might start to become a necessity. Another great surprise for me this week was Nuhu. 2 offensive contributions. Dude scores a goal, gets an assist, no shutout, team of the week, dream team. That was wild. These are things that I think Sounders fans always think he can do, but he doesn't do in fantasy. So that was really nice to see. And then Suarez, we've been asking for a couple weeks. Where's Suarez? You know, his goal production was really down from last season, and he seemed to really pop back this week. So that was a kind of a surprise, but still nice to see. My biggest disappointment, and I'm sure Reed will go into Evander more than I will, but my biggest disappointment was Joveljic. I had a lot of high hopes. He's definitely seemed like one of those strikers, like a Chicho Arango, and a couple of others, that was primed and ready for a revenge game. This seemed like a really good situation for him to score at home. He's mostly been scoring at home. I don't know SKC as well as Cam might, but I just felt like this was going to be a game from. I actually stranded a 6 on my bench and played Joveljic because I was so like confident in this. And he just got minutes played. It was a real bummer to see. They still beat LA, which I think was my general takeaway, but still, that was disappointing. I'm not even going to talk about Evander. Reed, you can talk about Evander. I'm so tired of him right now. I'm done. And then just another midi that's just, hot one day and cold the next is Jordan Mihalovic. I really felt like on the road against a really bad, generally bad, I guess I should say, not really bad, a generally bad DC United team, that this was, yes, he was a road midi, but this seemed like a good matchup for him. DC is still a team that I tend to bet against, even at home, and that did not come true for me with him. And I actually ended up putting Mihalovic in over Dryer because I liked that better, and that's just goes back to what Cam had said, always take home. So kind of taught myself my Cam's lesson there. But just a couple of general fantasy takeaways, and we can get into this a little bit later. What's up with Messi? What's up with Messi? I feel like if you really look at the point production and not how pretty he looks on the field, it's slipping. I firmly think that CCC has something to do with that. I think his point production is going to start coming back. But, there's just this verbiage floating around that's, if he's playing, you captain him. And my original captain for this last round was Espinosa. And if I'd left the armband on him, it would have been much more productive. Well, 12 points more productive than Messi. So I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm the ultimate Messi hype girl, so I don't want to betray my guy, but I'm just starting to have some hesitations. And then I am just standing by my very strange allegiance to Vancouver Whitecaps. Their dominance just continues. They lost that shutout in a 96th minute penalty kick. Their midfielders are getting bonus points. Brian White is just in form. Didn't start, but still. That I'm looking at this team every week. Several players from this team every week, which I don't think I've ever done for the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then, lastly, we've talked about this way too much, but the Galaxy are just yuck. I don't want to hear Peck's name. I can't even name all of their defenders at this point because they're all so bad. It is a wild turn in both the fantasy and the practical game, right? In production from the LA Galaxy. So I honestly, they're a team I'm betting against at this point.
Cam.
Well, you might not hear Peck's name very much if he's as hurt as he looked coming off. I don't think we've got any info on that, but we'll see. Just more reason to bet against the Galaxy, though.
Yep.
I had a decent week. I think some of it goes to what Reed said, where standards for good and bad are a little bit different when you're near the top 10. I had a 96 score, which dropped me 2 spots down to overall rank 3. It was week rank 542, which is usually pretty solid, but I tracked the data from my overall 3 season, and I think you need to average somewhere around a 3 to 400 week rank every single week to stay near the top there. So my 96, I'm pleased that I got that many points, but all I needed was 5 points, 5 more points to stay in that top spot, and I thought I had it in the bag when I had Evander and Dejan Joveljic playing on that last day, and just gonna shoot right back up to the top. That didn't really happen.
Didn't even kind of happen.
I think Evander won. It makes a little bit of sense. He was my only away player in a week where I kind of planted my flag on the home teams being the ones to back. So that one, that's a little bit of that's karma coming my way for picking an away player. Joveljic, I have no idea what happened there. Sporting.
Did you watch the game? Did he look involved?
The entire game. He was not very involved at all.
Ugh.
Sporting as a team looked pretty good for the first 20 minutes or so until they managed to snag that own goal. And then after that, it was all Galaxy. It was one way. Every time Sporting looked like they were going to get out of their own end, they turned it over with a sloppy pass, or they hit it long and then somebody just outmuscled them to the ball. I don't know what went on with Sporting there, but let's hope it's not reproduced, because I don't think it's sustainable to win a game without shooting the ball once.
Yeah.
It just stings because Joveljic was my I was debating between him and Arango on Saturday, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stick with the home team. It should be good against the Galaxy. I don't really buy into the revenge game narratives, but I think that he will be ready to score. He's kind of the one guy that you can bet on for KC, and I thought they were going to be good for 2 or 3 goals. Turns out they were good for no goals. Galaxy got one.
The revenge game narrative has never done me wrong, though, Cam. Joseph, Chicho, couple like that. It's always Freddie Montero scored against the Whitecaps. This is the first time it's really burned me, and he was a guy that I felt was so slighted at LA, right? Like I'd watch him come in as a sub and think, how is this young man not starting for this team? He's so good, and thank God he starts for SKC because he's a talent wasted on the bench, you know.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there might be some selective memory going on there for revenge games I was hitting, or you've been really good at picking them every time.
Yeah,
but
I do.
Especially if you looked at what the media leading up to the game was, there was no revenge in Dejan's mind. He said before the game that if he scored, he wasn't going to celebrate. He really respected his old team. They couldn't by league rules pay him what he deserved, and so he had to go somewhere else to get it. Yeah, I was also disappointed by Gazdag. I had him on my bench, and then as soon as kickoff happens, I go, "Where's Gazdag?" I thought he was going to get me a good solid number of points, which I probably would have scrubbed Evander or Dejan for. But instead, he's just a nice 9 million sitting there doing nothing. And then I messed up a little bit checking the Vancouver lineup. I wanted to see if, there was another midfielder I wanted to target there. And I completely spaced over looking to see if Ali Ahmed was starting. So I left him in my starting lineup to get a 2 once he subbed on at half. But
yeah,
hard to tell who I would have swapped him out for had I seen that. But good chance they would have beaten a 2.
right.
So check your lineups, everybody. I'm with you, Ashley, kind of looking at my notes here. I'm not sure what's up with Messi. It's less the raw scores that he's putting up, which are still pretty solid week to week, but I was kind of concerned at his lack of involvement overall. I mean, he barely hit his key passes, he barely hit his shots, when normally he's, up to 2 or 3 or 4 of those combined.
Yep.
And so I'm guessing that there's a lot to do with CCC and just general fatigue. He's an old man, doesn't really can't really do it every week anymore.
Yep.
So we'll see how he continues to do, but it's definitely something to monitor.
Yep.
But I think overall this week I will claim as a win for the nerds. I spent a lot of time arguing with people in chat that home teams. You don't want to take all these away mids. Sure, 1 or 2 of them might be all right, but hard to tell which one, even if they've got a juicy matchup. And the matchups that look juicy kind of aren't that appealing if you dig into the numbers. I think we did a little case study looking at DC's defense at home. They'd only conceded 5 or 6 goals cumulative over the course of their 5 or 6 home games. And so when you compare that to some of the better teams going on the road, like Philadelphia, that becomes the defense that you're comparing them to rather than their away form where they conceded like 16 or 17 in 5 games. And then I know we had a lot of talk about Dreyer. Even me, beginning of the week, I was like, all right, guys, we got to stop falling into the Dreyer trap. It's not going to happen. He's nerfed all the way out of relevance. But then I kept looking at the data and I kept seeing Dreyer sitting here as the number 1 player in the league for non-penalty expected goals plus expected assisted goals. He had a good matchup. I was like, all right, I can't go away from my data loving heart. I've got to stick with the expected goals and trust that he's going to show up at one point or another. Did not expect 5 goals from San Diego, but
no doubt.
I think that paid off pretty well. Now I got to think about Chucky Lozano every week.
Yeah, I had a great point from one of my girlfriends who I talk fantasy with, and I said, I was just so nervous from how things had been building that, Chucky kind of nerfs Dreyer, and she had Chucky this week, and she goes, yeah, that's why I have him. And it was just such a well, doy,
just take that guy.
Yep. So
yeah, whenever I start to think that this player is nerfing this other one, I usually try to consider on if the player's role has significantly changed or if there's just more oxygen going to the other one. So for the case of San Diego, it's not that Dreyer's role necessarily has changed too much on that right wing. It's just that Chucky was back, and so he was getting maybe an extra pass in the right situation or something. And then I try not to fall into the mindset that adding a good player to a team will then make the players around him worse. I think sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment, but if you're saying Dreyer doing it all himself is necessarily better than Dreyer when he can get assists to and assists from Chucky Lozano, I'm going to want to take that second one.
Yeah.
What do you got for us, Reed?
Yeah, well, what I got is I'll chime in onto the Messi argument, and yeah, he's old. He's sports old. That is the problem. Everything you're saying, the congestion and everything, he's sports old, and for me, he's definitely fallen out of the ACM section now. Maybe we see what happens when that's come up there, but I mean, I think he's burned so many people so long that we have to get out of the mentality of it always has to be Messi. He could do anything. I mean, he got me 10 points, which might have been the highest score that I had. For me, I guess if Ashley had a horrible week and beat me, then mine has to be a no good, very bad week. I don't know. It was not great. I
only beat you by a couple points. I think we both did equally poor.
No, it wasn't great. I had a lot of away players because I got into my head and I overthought it. And I say, look at these guys, they can do this. I think this is a good matchup for an away player, and it wasn't. And they did not perform. Cincinnati key in that away at that tiny field where crazy things always happen, and with a front line that has been frequently shuffled around due to injuries with Orshano, with Evander, and has not really had a time to build chemistry with some key absences that have been there. I mean, Buka was out this week. We've had others who have been unavailable at different times, and so it's made that midfield play difficult to really achieve. But I mean, Celentano's is still playing on his head for the things that just keep getting thrown at him. So I hate that he concedes these like one goal when these things happen to him every now and then, because I feel like he would just like he gets all these shots and makes these great saves, and then if he just got the clean sheet, it would just really make him stand up. But as Cam said, it's really clean sheet hunting with keepers. That it's why I drop the money when you have some of that. So I did get Espinoza. I fell into the same situation that Cam did with Gazdag and Ali Ahmed. So copy paste that right there. But I had Mukhtar come off the bench. I had Bawanga, had Messi, and because of Gazdag, I left Jovelik in there, expecting so much more, and in the end, getting so much less, a record amount of less, some people would say. Other than that, you guys have covered a lot. The couple things that just a few things I'll add right there is this is 4 wins for the Revs in a row. 4 wins for the Revs. I actually thought Toronto might had a decent shot at a clean sheet because of just some of the thoughts about the Revs I was keeping. They had a little bit of rotation during their Canadian Championship game, so I thought, okay, they've got some stuff. They had some rotation here during MLS too, though. So, but I took a flyer on that on the bench. But this is 4 in a row for the Revs, and I think we've really got to start rethinking some of that stuff. If you're not already there, that you should be thinking about some of what the Revs have going on. This echoes, if you remember any of the articles that people were putting out at the beginning of the season, a lot of people were talking about how this was a complete rebuild for the Revs. No one's played with each other. Everyone's got to figure it out. And if they're starting to figure it out, then this could be more of what we could expect at the pieces. They just needed time. So we'll see if that's what it is. But I think it's time to take some look there. I will agree, yes, wrong about Dreyer. Would definitely take that. Ojeda is moved out of this go-to status.
Why is he on the bench?
I don't know.
Who can tell me?
I don't know. But Orlando is just not clicking as they were. I expected more from Orlando in this past round, but that was a 0-0 draw. I thought there were going to be goals on both sides with Chicago and Orlando, and it ended up being a 0-0 draw. Benteke's back. He's back in the mix. He got the goal. He got the score right there. We see Montreal continuing to struggle, Austin continuing to struggle, but yeah, the biggest shock. Well, I was going to say the biggest shock was the Sporting Kansas City, but I'll also add in there, I was really surprised about Seattle's 4-1 win because I know they were missing some pieces.
I'm not going to lie.
There too. Yeah. So I mean, that's almost kind of right up there where I'm like, holy cap, Sporting Kansas City won 1-0 without taking a shot, and Seattle got 4 goals. What did that come from? So
some of them were kind of late to give a little credit to St. Louis, but Seattle at home it hasn't lost yet this season, and that's the norm. It hasn't always happened every season, but yeah.
But a lot of that falls back to
should have had a penalty too.
Should have had a penalty. Thank you so much.
But a lot of the big takeaway for me, the 2 big ones I would say is I need to rethink about New England, but it is just remember what works. And like Cam was saying, like there's home field advantage is real with MLS, and then I was falling to this pattern of overthinking that, and that's something I need to make smarter use of an away player when it makes sense, but don't forget the numbers like Cam was talking about. Let's head over to chat real quick, see how everyone here did. Gene Evander killed him right there.
Killed all of us, Gene.
Got a comment here. Reed, you convinced me to change my captain to Bawanga last minute. I originally had Espinoza. I mean, Espinoza was also on my list. So
he had my armband all weekend until I saw that Messi was starting. I didn't want Messi to start, so I didn't have to choose.
So I mean, you did no worse than people who captained Messi, like I did with the 10 there. So
it's a fine score.
It is. I had Messi, Bawanga, and Espinoza. So I feel like those were 3 solid options right there. But
Yes.
I'm sorry that you missed that on 12 points. I will definitely say right there. Saw some great scores posted in chat as well. I think people with triple digits. This is a weird one for me to try to gauge where the results were. I think you probably wanted something better than the 60s to really do well here. I think I had a lot of flubs, and so this seems more like a high 70, low 80 kind of round where you could probably really feel good about the score that you had. If you got less than that, I'm right there with you. These things happen, and it just takes some reset. And fortunately, we're going to have some good opportunities to reset coming up. But we'll see what opportunities present themselves in this round, because there are some definite curveballs that you're going to want to have to consider. And we'll talk more about that coming up right after this.
Have we seen anything about Ojeda yet? I have no idea why he's been on the bench.
I haven't.
Now.
I have not either.
But I'm not. Yeah.
Just the doghouse, or not in form, or I don't know.
But like he is. What are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like he has been informed. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it because I like him.
I mean, let's see here.
Maybe they were prepping for a midweek game, is what some people were talking about.
Are they in?
Yeah, but he was out for
this
2 weeks now.
This is several weeks in a row where he's not got a goal or an assist. He's only had one decent round of even getting key passes in there, and so like it's like he's been struggling consistently for a little while right now since he was like tearing it up at the beginning of the year. So, but yeah, these 30 minutes that he's been pulling the last couple of rounds, I'm just like, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's not a good fallback. It looks
like they took all of the Orlando took all of the can't defend jokes to heart. Like kind of what, 4 or 5 clean sheets in a row for him?
Yeah.
Doubt. All right, let me get the social ready. Post. Click. Yeah, I didn't even check that actually to see that we had a derby going on, because here you're like, help me, and I'm like, here's my team.
Oh, so in my defense, I didn't know until the round was over. And I was like, well, I guess I'll fucking check to see if I won any head-to-heads. I saw that we were playing each other. And I was like, like, you and I tend to have fun. I was more competitive. I like to be more competitive with the other guys because it's better banter. You and I have a kindness between us.
Oh, but yeah, that Gazdag thing. I was in the same, like, I think I put it in chat, Cam. I don't think I put it in I don't know if I put it in the club or if I put it in just the FI chat, but I was like, what happened to Gazdag? It's like, he was there. I didn't watch that game. What happened? It's like, nope, 0 injury. I'm like, dang it.
Nothing. DMP.
Oh, biscuits. That's what happened.
Oh, biscuits. You can tell you have a toddler.
Who says that?
He didn't sub on late and get a 1-pointer to just drop in price.
Very, very true.
Who says, oh, biscuit? That's Bluey, my guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Gotta get your Bluey.
Tiny children. Okay, let's see here. Let me get the image. Where are we at here? This one right there.
Here got one.
Move that to hide. Thank you. And fade in. So there we go. Now I can do the good edits. And let's get to the spot. All right, socials out. If you guys can reshare that, so appreciate all the help. All right, and we're back talking about player targets going into round 12 already, flying by. But first, quick little aside with some quick housekeeping. Please remember, this is the final round. Round 12 is the final round of the second quarter qualifier for the Fantasy Champions League. So if you are right there on the bubble of getting top 50, just be thinking about who you're playing against, what's going on, because this is your chance to punch your ticket into the Fantasy Champions League. So we'll get into our third quarter qualifier after this, but round 12, the final one for that. As for games, we are Saturday and Sunday games right here. Everything starts on Saturday, May 10th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Chicago Fire versus Atlanta United. Should be an interesting one right there. After that, everything is following our usual Apple TV schedule. The one note that I would probably make is that there are two 4:30 games, so just keep an eye on some of those. One more earlier game than maybe we're used to. Otherwise, things are following pretty consistently with the 30s this time. Lots of stuff spaced out, and then we have one team playing, or one game, two teams playing on Saturday, May 11th, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Vancouver Whitecaps versus Los Angeles FC. However, this is not the only thing that you should be keeping track of, because while we don't have any teams in a double, don't have any teams in a bye, we are into the Open Cup season where MLS teams are starting to get involved and maybe starting to take it a little seriously. We'll see with some of the competition that's there. So, let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 teams are playing at home this week. With Open Cup, we have DC United, Nashville, Philadelphia, Chicago, St. Louis, Dallas, Austin, and San Jose. And then we have 2, 4, 6, 8 teams playing on the road. I should have just done that math ahead of time. We've got Charlotte, New York Red Bulls, Portland, New York City FC, New England Revolution, Orlando, Minnesota, and Houston. So several teams are playing. That's going to be played over the next few days. So keep an eye on the rotations, keep an eye on the lineup, and just see what happens, because some teams may be taking this more seriously than others. But Open Cup legitimately back into the mix of things that you need to be paying attention to that could impact your fantasy lineup, because as we've seen from CCC, it absolutely does impact. That hunt for hardware is real, and everyone wants it. Other than that, just head over to the MLS Fantasy Boss Discord, head down to the Fantasy Tools section, check out the Mega Reference. That is the easiest way to keep track of all these players who are ins, who are outs, with other leagues coming up, like call-ups, anything like that. Check that out in the Mega Reference for 2025 at the Fantasy Boss Discord. It is a great community-curated project that is really an easy way to get all this information quickly and accurately. I will say much more accurately than sometimes the official sources have, and this one just being a community run. So yeah, head that out, fantasyboss.com/discord. But let's start talking about players. I know that's why you guys are here, talking about players, and we've got two great people to talk about players with. So let's get things started off with keepers and defenders. Cam, who are you looking at?
All right. I unusually, since I knew I was going to be on the pod, did some prep work and wrote down all of the clean sheet shouts that I thought were something fun to take a look at.
Ooh.
And so I had written down that I was interested in Chicago from the early slate, and also Toronto, and then Cincinnati, New York were all intriguing to me, as well as Orlando and Nashville. And so putting together those, I wanted a good semblance of a switcheroo, and I always try to start with some of the cheaper keepers, and then if I have enough money left over, I can upgrade later. So in light of Chris Brady's red card, I'm taking his backup, Jeffrey Gall. Probably not going to pay off for me. I think Chicago have one of the worst home defenses, but hey, it's a nearly free shot at a clean sheet for a home team in an early time slot. I'm not going to pass that up too many times. I'm interested in Sean John, just to get my keeperoo out of the way by midday on Saturday. But right now I do have the money to have a decent goalkeeper backup, and so that's put me onto Celentano. I think Cincinnati can certainly hold a clean sheet against that very expensive Austin attack. And so I've doubled Celentano up with Oriano starting. If he's out of position like he always is, he should always be a consideration, especially at home and especially against a not great opponent. I've got Ali Ahmed starting next to him for basically the same reasons. He's on a good team. He plays out of position. He gets bonus points. He gets goal involvements. He's almost certain to start for me, unless he is certain to start for me because I'm doing something weird. Normally, I'm shooting for as many clean sheets as possible. So it'll be 2 guys and then a scrub. But I've got a third starter next to Ali Ahmed and Luca Ariano. I've got Alex Friedman from Orlando, which means that this will definitely be the time, the game that Orlando breaks their clean sheet streak on. But he's been getting good bonus points. He's been getting good goal involvement. So maybe it won't matter, but it'll probably be this week that he posted 2 because I'm finally jumping on the train. I've got Andrew Gutman on my bench for just a pair with my goalkeeper. I usually try to go for that pairing if I think there's a decent shot at a clean sheet or it's got good timing reasons. Then it's easy to put somebody else on your bench and see what happens. So right now I've got Gutman on my bench, although first draft yesterday I had Petrata because I wanted to kind of spread that clean sheet risk out, and I still might go that way with the early Toronto game.
Ashley.
Yeah, right now I'm going Freeze for NYCFC into Pantomis, who didn't play last round for Portland. I think I'll still lean Portland, but I'm putting him in because he's more expensive. So I want to have the budget for him if he starts. Portland on the back end there. Portland shut out Sporting Kansas City at Sporting Kansas City. Just like within the last couple weeks, and so I'm okay with that as a kind of a second keeper, anticipating that at home with the Timbers Army, maybe they can repeat. Not the most surefire defense, and neither is NYCFC, but that's just where I'm leaning at the front end of these rounds. I also have Freeman. I've had him a couple of times. He hasn't 2'd me yet, so I'm gonna keep him in there this week. I'm also going back to someone who has 2'd me and also produced offensively, which is Valencia for New York Red Bull. He reminds me a little bit of Tolkien and Kyle Duncan getting up on the wing. And New York Red Bull's hard to pin down for me this season, and so the weekends I really think they can't hold a clean sheet. They do. I don't know what to make of Forsberg in the midfield this season either. He seems like just a constant fiver. So I don't love having Valencia, but that's where I'm at right now. And then I have space for Ali Ahmed for Vancouver, but I'm also considering going, down to Tate Johnson or someone else, just if the budget needs it. And then I'm alternating back and forth between a NYCFC defender and who I like there. I agree. I like Cam's little shout out of the notes, considering Nashville. I looked at Lovitz and Nahar. I just wasn't quite sure if I liked that matchup more. But it's definitely one that I'm not totally off of.
I just want to note that Portland did not shut out KC at home. They did smash us, but it was 4-2.
What? Oh, he saved a penalty. I'm looking at the stats, right? He got a 7. Yes. And I was like, oh, shutout. Sorry. My apologies, Cam. The 7 misled me.
Maybe he'll save a penalty again.
I mean, that's fine. I don't care how he gets there.
If it works. You don't have to shoot to get a penalty chance. So, I mean, it's just got to get in there.
That's true.
I definitely see where you guys are coming from with the goalkeeper picks. New York City FC going up against Montreal that just can't win for trying makes a lot of sense. Portland against Sporting Kansas City with the struggles they've had makes a lot of sense as well. And Coronel with Red Bull going against LA. I think those are the 3 teams that are easily being targeted right now for where people would going. I love the shout out for Cincinnati. I mean, as I was just saying, Celentano is a quality keeper that's had some fantastic saves already this year, and Austin has been struggling with there as well. I think it gets really shaky after that as to who could potentially get a clean sheet. That Chicago Fire, I think, is a really interesting shout out because Atlanta has continued to struggle as well this year and leans into the home strategy that you have. So I think all of those are definitely in the top cut right now. I was looking at a Cincinnati and Portland potential switcheroo going on right there myself. And then for the defenders, for me, I'm just looking for the out of position guys, and I'm just matching them up with my keepers, my keeperoo and my main keeper, and then I'm throwing in a 4.0 scrub right there. So that's what I'm doing. I do the same strategy that Cam does, have a scrub defender. Well, having 2 defenders on the bench is what I'm going at for what I usually do. I usually have a scrub defender in the field, 2 defenders on my bench, so I have some rotation there, and then some later week guys in my attacking group, so I can still do some aroos if I need them. But I do also like having a couple of defenders on the bench. I don't feel good enough about any team. I know this was a question that we had a few weeks ago that I'm just coming back to. I don't feel good enough about any team to really want to go a 3-player stack with a defensive unit, because I think this season's just been so wild this year. So, but I do still like to match up with my keeper and my defender. Nothing different in chat, so let's go ahead and move on to our midfielders. Ashley, who do you like?
I like Mukhtar. I'm hesitant because I started to like him before he was producing, so it makes me nervous to commit to it still. But like Cam said, decent home matchup. I think that Charlotte is a good defense, but I think they're a better home defense than a road defense. So I'm okay to target them this week. And Mukhtar is generally hitting a stride. So I like him at home this week. I like Espinoza, who is on the road. Maybe I'm wrong, altitude, but he seems to be in a great run of form right now. I wouldn't touch San Jose's defense with a pole, but I like what their offense is doing, and Colorado defense, it hasn't been incredibly stuck in. And then I'm just going to stick on that same game and pick up Jordy Mihailovic, who, again, 2'd me last week, but I like the matchup because, like I said, I wouldn't touch San Jose's defense. So I think there's points on both sides of the ball there. That's something I try to avoid. So I asterisk that now by saying I might work out of that double and just do Jordy. But SB is a road midi that I do like this week. And then my other two, I think, are a little out there picks. But I'm picking up Anthony from Portland and not DaCosta right now. And I also like Pedro Vite. I know a lot of people have been on Sebastian Berhalter for Vancouver, and I absolutely get that look. But I have low-key been following Vite a lot for a while. Like there was not last season, I think, but the season before, he was like my I can't afford anybody else bench mid player. Because he tends to just pick up little bonus points, and he was incredibly cheap then, and so he's just someone that I've been monitoring, and he seems to really be coming into good fantasy form this season with everything that Vancouver's doing now. LAFC seems to be somewhat turning it around. That is a good defense, but again, that's a team that I don't believe has a very good road defense. So I'm just banking on Vancouver lately. So that might not be the right player to do it, but that's where I'm at right now.
Cam.
Yeah, I think at this point was where I wanted to bring up kind of something that I think was touched on last week with John, where usually I'm trying to find players on teams where they are the guy, where everything flows through them, and so there's a very narrow funnel for the fantasy points to go through. And so if you know that they've got a good matchup and the team's likely to score some goals, that player is probably going to be involved. And so I agree with you, Ashley. I really like Vancouver players, but I like all of their players and not just one or two. And so I find it tough to pick between Vite and Berhalter, and White's probably out again, but White, or there's still the Ali Ahmed or the Ocampo or the Jaden Nelson. There's so many guys that I could hit. I don't want to sit there and watch their game and they put up 4 goals and maybe Vite picks up an assist or something. But he could also score 3 of them at any time. So with that in mind, my picks are just kind of relatively chalky. I tend to not deviate too much and put too many surprises in there. And so for one of the most guys on his team, I've got Federico Bernardeschi on my bench just to take advantage of that early matchup timing. Some of that is influenced by my Saturday plans. I've got a little kid's birthday party to go to, and then Union Omaha's first home game since they won the championship last year. So I got to make it up to that, see the ring ceremony,
absolutely,
do a whole guard of honor and everything. So hoping to be able to sort out my bench in these early games and then just check lineups carefully enough to notice if my players are starting or not this week. Starting for the rest of my midfield, I've got Evander. I'm just going to keep going back to that well, even if it hurts. It's a good matchup. He's a great player.
You're so forgiving, Cam.
I am. I'm like a goldfish. I don't remember that he burned me just a day ago.
Ugh.
I've got Hani Mukhtar, kind of like you, Ashley. Great matchup. Charlotte has a great home defense, but they just seem to forget what they're doing on the road sometimes. I'm
Mhm.
not sure what it is, but they're definitely targetable when they're traveling. I've got Georgie just to match you there. I think San Jose still has the worst defense in the league,
Yeah.
and I think they're on track to put up a worse defense than last year, which was a record for the worst defense. So I'm picking against them basically every time I can. Last mid is DaCosta. I think Antony can certainly outscore him, and he very well might, but DaCosta is just a little bit more central. And really, I'm hoping I can just scrub him out of there so I don't have to root against KC.
Let's see. I don't have many people that I would want to add to that list unless I start getting into away players. Mukhtar, Bernadeschi, a Portland midfielder were some of the ones I added pretty quickly to my team. I'm going to think more about Evander and just kind of see where I end up with my own headspace with that one. But I do like the game. I do like the matchup with that. You mentioned something about Forsberg a few seconds ago, and I think I've been very clear about my thoughts on Forsberg. And if you're new to the show, I don't care for him. I don't think he is playing well. I think that we keep seeing the few results that New York is getting. Like he's not being involved with him, and so he's just not been a good player to pick in fantasy. I mean, I'm not watching him week in and week out, but for 9-4, I don't think he's giving us the fantasy returns that we want. And if he's doing good things for the team, that's fantastic. But for fantasy, I don't care for him, even with a New York matchup against LA Galaxy. Like somebody else will do it. It's just what I'm convinced with, and so I think I'd rather look at some other options. Some of the people we kind of go to, I know, like Sullivan's been one in Philadelphia we've gone to often, and he's been coming up pretty blank. I worry about going to him against Columbus, which has been able to get some results there. I'm just frustrated about that match in general. The Dallas RSL match, I think, is interesting right there. That might be a situation where maybe you do throw in a way like a Luna on your bench and see Dallas has had some struggles. I mean, you could maybe say the same thing about New England if this is going to be the time where Orlando breaks it, some of theirs. But I think some of these other guys get a bit better. But that's who I'm looking at right now. If you're going to go with Vancouver, I am tempted by Berhalter, and I think that's what really. I don't disagree with anything you said though, Ashley. With that, one, he's got a low price, which is nice, but he's not going to be playing in the final because of his card accumulation. So this is MLS is it for him. The regular season is it for him because that's just not in the cards for him anymore. So there's no reason for him to be rested or to worry about that. So he can go all out. Other guys still have the CCC to get into. So it's it does make him.
Finals not for a few weeks, is it?
No, that's true. That's true. But they don't have to worry at all. So it's not, is he going to get injured? Is he not going to be available? It's like, we can just play him. He can just play and let him do whatever he wants to do and see if that form carries over into the league, that he doesn't have to worry about resting for it at all when they're going. So now that might be a bit more impactful. That might be a better choice for when CCC is upon us and we know that he will be not there and he will be available here. But that's some of what I'm thinking of. Is he's got a good run of form. He's not going to be in that picture. So, but that is not anything against. That's just my pitch for him right there. Otherwise, if you've got away people, go to Discord, throw them out there, see if Cam responds. Look at the numbers for where you're looking at. I mean, I think there's some good. There's a good mix of home forwards and midfielders that I think you can have a nice little mix there that gives you flexibility for what you might want to do with your bench. Checking chat real quick. Quiet in chat tonight. Not a whole lot of people chatting, so share your thoughts, guys. Let us know what you think. But let's move on to forwards and see what you all think. Cam, who are you looking at?
Forwards, always a fun one. I've currently got Kuipers on my bench. I think Atlanta United is very, very gettable.
Yeah.
And Kuipers is the guy for Chicago. I think just double checking, he does lead the league in non-penalty XG. And I think he's
Nice.
on
Okay.
PK duty anyways.
I think
So
so.
I'm expecting him to hit for at least a goal, maybe multiple, so much that I'm toying with outright starting him so I can bench Freeman and return to my classic 3-defender setup. But we'll see.
Cam,
how that
I'm
one
just
goes.
reading into something here, and I just want to tell you that I don't think you like Freeman. I don't think you want to have him. I think you're just doing it. I know.
I haven't had
just
him
wanna...
all year,
yeah.
but it's undeniable now.
Okay.
I can't ignore how well he's been doing.
I just feel like, is there someone there that's like forcing you to have him on? Do you need me to call someone?
Don't worry, I'll figure out a way to tinker him out. It'll be fine.
Okay, good.
All right, so we've got Kuipers. I gotta have Messi. He's still the guy. Even in a disappointing game, he put up 10 points. Yeah. He's just, if he's starting, you play him and you probably captain him. Don't need to think about it too much more than that. And then maybe a relatively spicy pick, but I do have Navarro from Colorado on my team right now. He's in the scrub conversation, of course, but Colorado's been good at home. San Jose has leaked goals everywhere. And so right now he's starting for me. We'll see if I look at things a little bit closer and go with one of my other options. I'm looking really, really hard at Muriel for Orlando. He's another one of those guys really high up in the expected goal rankings. And we talked about how we think that is a decent matchup anyways. I think if I knew that Ojeda would be starting, probably both Ojeda and Muriel would be in my team. But don't know what's going on there. And then I'm a little bit tempted by like Kevin Denke, just because that's that same Cincinnati matchup that I'm targeting pretty heavily, but he just doesn't have the shot volume for me to really be convinced that he can get multiple goals in any given game, bicycle kicks notwithstanding.
Amazing.
But we'll see. Right now, Kuipers, Messi, and Navarro.
Ashley.
Yeah, I like the Navarro shout. I think he's been kind of quietly producing. And so, yeah, it's a little spicy, but it does make sense to me, Cam. I like that. I like that shout. I have Benteke. I like that he's back. He seems to be healthy. He scored a goal. I mean, you don't get a ton from him, but you usually get at least a goal contribution's worth of points. So if he's starting, Chicago defense is not my favorite defense. I think that it's a good road matchup for him. So I have him. I also have Messi. Like I said earlier in the show, I'm not sure what's going on with the point production there, but I do think it's CCC related. And I think now that they're out of CCC and he can just focus on MLS until, he goes to play for his national team, I think we should see a little more of the messiness. And then right now, my third striker is Amart, is Martinez from NYCFC. He's on my bench, so I can see. I haven't been crazy high on him or NYCFC, so I'm not sure what it is that I'm so interested in them this week. Cam, like he said, is notoriously kind of a stat guy. I'm a gut gal, and so I am just kind of called to this home matchup against Montreal. And Montreal has definitely kind of been a shutout killer in the sense that there've been a couple of rounds this season where you bet against them and they just pull a random goal out. So I could be wrong here, but their defense is not great. And so I just wanted a little bit of the offense from NYCFC, and he's where I landed.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. Alonso Martinez, if you include penalties, is top 5 for expected goals in the league. Just right next to Surge and Kuipers and Arango and Benteke. So I think this is a moment where your gut kind of aligns with some of the stats there. As long as he keeps
Yeah.
his penalties and doesn't keep missing them.
Yeah.
That is always important. Very, very similar. I mean, Kuipers was one of the first guys I had on my team. I do have Messi, even though I went on that rant about him earlier on. That was mostly about captaining, but they are on the road, and when it comes to Miami for a road chance to score, they're scoring almost 2 goals a game on the road, and you would expect that Messi would be involved in those joints, those actions. And then for Minnesota, they're giving up about a goal a game at home, so they're not solid. I like the way those numbers are matching up. That's kind of backing into like a different way of talking about Cam's XG right there. Like that seems to me like there's going to be goals in this game. And if he is not resting, if he's not that, I do think CCC has impacted him because right now he is not worth 13 million at all. With the kind of results that points that we've seen so far. So I do like Messi for that. And I was looking at Muriel as well as my third option. Some of that was from, I liked the potential of that game. I didn't like Ojeda with what we've been seeing from him with his results. And so Muriel's had some good form that's there right now to go with. Benteke, I think, is a great road shout. He's just consistent with what he is putting up. And DC is doing better than a goal a game on the road, and that's a lot of it is because of him. So I think that's a good shout. And for Toronto, as far as being at home, they're in the middle of the bucket, just like I was talking about with Minnesota, giving about a goal a game at home. So I think those are good numbers. Those there to going with the away keepers. I mean, I toyed with like Baribo, but I don't really care for that matchup. Like I said before, with that, I know we've talked about Nashville, and we did not see a repeat 4 goals right there. And so I agree with Cam that Charlotte sometimes seems to lose the plot when they're on the road, but I don't think they're gonna lose it that much. That necessarily makes that a go-to option right there. Potentially, you could pick someone from New York City FC going up against Montreal. I think those are good shots. But everything else, I think you guys have covered right there. Some good options, I think, with forward. And if you want to look at the away teams, you can. But I think they're definitely bench plays right there. And just see what happens. Just see what happens and have fun with it and go from there. But I just got called out ahead of the show about my captain tips last week. So let's move on and talk about that because it's Ashley's turn this week to do the captain's video. So let's see, Ashley, who are you thinking right now? Or are you going to save it for the video?
I'm not. You know what? Actually, I really like having that option. I am going to save it for the video, but I will briefly touch on some of it. I will just start by saying I don't want to captain Messi this week. And I don't have a lot to play for. I'm not Cam. I'm not, up there. I kind of have this ability because I'm doing so badly to just kind of play with it a little bit. And I have kind of enjoyed that freedom because I'm stressed out for not doing well. But in so many, just about every other season, I've been stressed out about maintaining, right? So it's a looser kind of stress. I feel like I can just gamble a little bit more because it can't get much worse. And so I just feel like maybe I don't want to captain him this week. He's still messy. I would kind of like to see those lineups. I'm not going to captain anybody before him. So that's just where my head's at currently. And again, no one has championed. I mean, Blaine and I almost got into a fist fight over Zoom over Messi. I have been championing him over and over and over again, but I think I might take a break this week. I think there are a couple other decent captain shouts that are just equally chalky, but I will save that for the video.
All right. Well, Cam, you'll talk freely. Who are you looking at?
All right. Well, if you're going to take the cop out, I guess I get to head most of the captain chat. I do have a rank to maintain, but I don't think that really affects me just defaulting to Messi every single week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still got it. Even in a disappointing game, he put up 10 points. If you were choosing to go a little bit spicy, maybe a differential captain. I think there's some justifiable reasons to not captain Messi. He hasn't looked quite as involved. He's on the road, which normally I go, it's too many away players. You've got any number of away players, and Minnesota, they're not too shabby on defense. They look like one of the better defenses in the league. And if we're gonna play some narrative games, maybe they start Julian Gressel and just have him man mark Messi the whole match.
That'd be fun.
But it is Messi for me. But if for some reason he's not starting, then that slides, I think, immediately to Georgi Mihailovic. I love the matchup. Georgie is the guy there. I'm a little bit concerned if Cole Bassett remains out, just because he's such an engine in that midfield.
Yeah.
But Georgie's my next up, and then after that, I would probably have to consider captaining Hani Mukhtar, going against that Charlotte defense that's not been great on the road. Or you can cover your ears if you don't want to hear it. Evander's in that contention for me too.
That's I'm just trying to let it sink in because I've been so
stunned silence.
I've just been disappointed. Like we've been getting the wins, but they're not like the big wins that I would want them to be. They've been close games. People haven't been playing as much as to the level that you want, and then the loss, and it's just like, captain, it's like
maybe it's just me trying to protect myself since I completely faded him for that Chicago away game with 15 points on everybody else's team.
Maybe so. No, but one, I feel like I picked a bad week to rant about Messi and not always captaining him. But this is one of those rounds. Like I just talked about the numbers of the expectations that you have from Miami and the expectations that you have from Minnesota with how the goals have worked out. So I mean, it totally makes sense that he's going to be in the mix. But we've seen other people who have absolutely been in the mix that we've just not even gone to because of that. A lot of those guys are on the road this round. I mean, like with your Rusnaks and your Bwangas and some of the other people, your Dyers, like those people are on the road, and that definitely impacts them more than people would argue that it impacts Messi. So I think it totally makes sense. You could, if you wanted to go differential, if you wanted to add in the mix, I think Jordy's a good shout. I think Mukhtar's a good shout. Those are two guys at the top of my list that I'm looking at right now. I think maybe a bit more risky one, but keeps in that forward category is Kuipers. If you really feel good about him and the kind of XG that he has against Atlanta, that's early on. I don't know if early captain is better than late captain with how you have that there, but he's done fantastic at scoring this year. He's got 2 in his last 3 games. Had a bit of a dry spot there, but he gets key passes, he gets shots, and that's just so crucial for a good forward to have. And so I think Atlanta is a good run for him. Before he's at home to Charlotte after that. So this is definitely the better of the next couple of games that he has. So I think I'd throw those guys in right there. But looking forward, Ashley, to seeing who you would go with at the end of the day.
I'm not trying to like tease it. I'm just really happy to not have to choose anything.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can do that. Comment we get from Patrick in there is Mukhtar. It totally makes it. I mean, they on the road he got a solid score. Now he's back at home. I think he is a great number 2 captain even against Charlotte. I don't know what the XG numbers say for Charlotte, but when they're away, they're definitely not as good as they are when they're at home. So it's just let Cam crush the numbers right there with the XG. But yeah, that's all right. Well, thank you so much everyone for joining us tonight. It's been super fun. With hope this round will be a little bit less surprising than the last round with some of those pre-game injuries and just some absolutely bonkers that it helps people kind of have a nice little reset. But that's part of what the fun is, and we're so happy to have you along for the ride. So let's wrap things up with our plugs. Cam, what you got?
Oh, what do I got? I feel like I did this exact same plug when I came on last time, but I know most people live in an MLS community, but I do not. I support from afar, but what I do is I support my local team, Union Omaha. So everybody who does or does not live in an MLS community, support your local soccer team. They need it. They're a lot of fun. I still think that the best soccer is live soccer. And so I'm sporting my Proud Owls Union Omaha kit tonight. And it's your doctors, your teachers, everybody else who is under assault right now. And I just think that the MLS fantasy community has been on top of that from day one.
All right. Excellent plug. Excellent plug. And our teams are no longer in the same league, so we don't have to worry about
it's
that
true.
tension anymore. Yeah,
you don't have to worry about getting beat.
That's right. We bought our way out of that situation by building a stadium. So, also very MLS.
We're hoping to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Ashley.
I just want to say I am wearing my local USL team's kit as well, just coincidentally, but I just love them. Ballard FC, two-time champions. So I love that plug. There you go, Reed. Get with it.
There you go.
You're so
join the
corporate,
party.
you know? He's just like so mainstream. I know.
There you go. Get your Lexington.
I want to plug, because I know Reed will plug the Discord. I just want to plug everybody who's been contributing to the MLS Fantasy Insider content that we've been putting out and pushing out this season, as well as just the podcast, but all the work that people have been doing. You know, Wojo and Ranch. Meg hopped on a great differentials article this past week.
Oh yeah.
I just really appreciate everything that everybody is doing, and it's nice to, you know, I do miss Skylar's articles, and I loved seeing that come out from MLS. I definitely miss his voice, but it's been really nice to see what our community is putting together under this flagship. So I'm just plugging that so people check it out. Check out these captain videos. It's basically just Reed and I having an inner monologue between who we want, but I think that it's some great content, and I'm just really happy with everything everyone's been doing. So
shout out to Wojo for organizing a lot of that too.
That's right. Wojo's done great.
Wojo enough. Like, I don't want to really spotlight my favorite, but oh my God, Wojo, just an angel this season. He's been doing so much stuff behind the scenes.
Appreciate him reaching out and wanting to be involved. I realize at this moment that it's kind of unfortunate that I did go and grab my Lexington Sporting Club. Which I hate Sporting Lexington. They missed that opportunity. Anyway, colors, because they're Austin's colors, and that's who we're playing this round. So it's a very conflicting thing right now. I know. Anyway, yes, MLSFantasyBoss.com has been doing fantastic. Wojo has been a great help in getting some fantastic new authors for us, some guest spots sorted out for us, but MLSFantasyBoss.com for the weekly articles that we do have. And of course, MLS Fantasy Boss Discord is the place to be for the community that has been built over these past decade of just fantasy fanatics that we have. And so if you have not checked that out still, I can't believe it. If you're watching the podcast or listening to it, I can't believe you're not checked it out, but maybe it's your first time. Head over MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. Find the best fantasy community that there is online, with people like Cam, who is number 3 overall. We had Meg, who was number 2, just like flirting with number 1, was tied at number 1, who was there. These people are in the chat. They're answering questions, past champions, current, just people killing it. So it's fun, it's free, it's just a great community to be a part of. And so head over to there if you have not already, and become part of that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And as always, good luck.